Welcome back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we didn't really have much in mind, so we're going to be talking about what is the best amount of games for the Padres in this upcoming season. We are expecting it to be reduced considering that the lockout's still going on. There's a very few amount of days that a agreement could be made for the season to start on time, even though Manfred has said over and over again that it's going to start on time. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not, but for this segment, we're going to be kind of talking about this because one of the Padres' biggest question marks is durability, especially in the pitching department, especially when you look at some of these guys that are either coming back from Tommy John, had recently had Tommy John. Yu Darvish has had back injuries. There's so many guys that have some injury questions, and last season is a prime example of when your pitching just falls apart. It's going to get really, really hard to win. So with a reduced season, it's going to help the Padres' chances of making the playoffs and potentially bringing home the first World Series to San Diego. Now, the big question is, what's like that cap? What's that number that puts them into the tier of like, hey, they're going to be in a really, really good spot here? Chase, you can lead it off. How many games does the season need to be for the Padres to have their best chance at making it to the World Series?
I say no more than 100. Because through the first 81 games, we were one of the best teams there was. We weren't going to win the division because the Dodgers and Giants they were going crazy this year or last year. We were the third best team in the NL. We had, I think, the third or fourth best record. We had the third best record. We were like 5-6 games up in the wild card. And then around after 100, 110 games, things started to get a little shaky after the trade deadline. You had Darvish with the back injury, pitching really bad because of the sticky stuff and injuries. Snell was pitching his best, but then Paddock had his off and ons. Paddock got hurt. Snell then got hurt. The only one that didn't get hurt was Darvish. Weather struggled throughout that second half of the season. And it was to the point where, everyone knows the story. You signed Jake Arrieta and Vince Velasquez. They absolutely blow. So in order to prevent this, and in order to get the most out of an aging Darvish who has had multiple problems with his back the last couple of years, I say 100 games. You have 5 starters, that's 20 starts each. I think you get Darvish through 20 starts, and then you hit postseason, that is optimal. He's probably going to be the best he's ever been around 20 starts because you get time to adjust from the mistakes that you make from earlier starts. Same thing with Musgrove, Snell, and Nick Martinez has time to adjust to the league. You probably know what's going on with Chris Paddock and what role he's going to take after 100 games. We still don't really know where he is at injury-wise. But even then, you get through 100 games, you don't have to really worry about Tatis re-injuring his shoulder as much as he did last year. He had 3 or 4 instances where he had a shoulder pop out, multiple IL stints. A shorter season for him probably is better, so he's not always trying to make these crazy plays. It's better for your aging players. It's better for Hosmer because Hosmer in smaller sample sizes has proven to be better. We saw the 2020 season throughout the 60 games. I think he only played 32 to 38, but that was his best year on the Padres. You get Eric Hosmer for less games. Hopefully, you don't get him through the dog days of July and August like you would in a 162. He stays healthier. He stays fresher. He hits a little better. Who knows if he's going to be playing first or not? That's a different question. Myers in his 60-game season was phenomenal. He was a monster. So hopefully, less games. He's less streaky. He's a little more consistent. Same thing with Grisham. We saw him. He had a breakout year. His 60-game season. Cronenworth did too, though Cronenworth showed consistency throughout 162. It's just Nola probably won't get as hurt as he would in 162 games catching. I mean, you just benefit from guys staying healthier overall, pitchers getting less innings, the bullpen being less taxed. I think 100 games is the max because then you go through the new playoff format. You get 3 games. Let's say the maximum you go, 3, 5, 7. So another 15 games at least, or at most in the playoffs. That puts you around 115, which is right around where the Padres started to fall off. So I think 100 games max.
Yeah, I think obviously looking back to 2020, you had a 60-game season. Obviously, the shorter, the better it would be for the Padres. But being a little selfish because I want to see more baseball, I like 120. I've always kind of been an advocate of first off, there should not be 162 games in a season. That is blasphemous. I cannot imagine playing 162 games in that time span. I mean, basically every day you have a game, and that's absurd. Like, you're asking for a lot of injuries, and that sucks. I think 120 is perfect in a regular season. Like, that's how much it should be. Of course, everybody likes to watch more baseball. Who wouldn't? But it also helps you push out some more marketable players. When you give teams 2-3 days off, you also can plot. If you're giving Fernando 2 days off, 3 days off in Southern California, in Southern California primarily, you could start marketing the Ohtani. Everybody want to watch Ohtani and Trout because that's what's on their TV. Like, I think that's super cool too. It helps with marketing. But for the Padres, I don't want to feel a sense of guilt. Like, damn, we only won an 80 or 100 game season. Of course, optimally, you're going to want a shorter season for the health of your players, for so far decently injury-prone Tatis, for an injury-prone Yu Darvish. You want shorter amount of games because it's better for their health. Yes, I completely agree with you guys on that. It's just a moral, I guess, aspect of it. I would rather win in 120 games. I think that's just – I remember I had an argument about the 60-game season with my friend when it was announced it would be 60 games. And he said, he's a Dodger fan, if we win it, it'll be legit. But if you guys win it, it won't. And I said, why? And then he said, because we've shown that we're actually good, and you guys will only be good through 60 games. And I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense. But that's like another thing, like, you want to win in an actual season as many games as possible. You might not get 162. And for those who didn't watch the end of one of our last videos, they have till the 28th. They have till the 28th to come to an agreement. And if they come to an agreement on the 28th, opening day will start on time. The season will start on time. If not, we're going to get one of these scenarios that we're talking about. So I think 120 is good. Yes, they did start to fall off, but they still make the playoffs at 120 last year. We were talking about this before, and Chase brought up that, it always comes in threes. But I said there's no way the baseball gods come at our pitchers again for the third straight year. Because, Lamet and Clevenger the first time. This year it was literally all of them, except for like Musgrove. But yeah, I think as long as the team gets their day, I think every team deserves their 2-3 days off at a time. Sometimes, not all the time. I think that'd be solid. 120 games, you still get to market a lot of players, you still get a lot of baseball, and it still feels somewhat legit, a World Series.
Yeah, and obviously one thing I think is fair to bring up, we would rather there be the full season. Like, we like watching baseball. We want to see the full season. Isaac, I think it's super fair that you bring up how just grueling playing 162 games must be. And we've definitely seen that for the Padres. And like you said, the last 2 years, like, completely derailed because of starting pitching injuries. But if I'm looking at it, you win 100, Chase. Isaac, you win 120. I'm going to go 80. I'm looking back at the season. If you look back to the 60-game season, the Padres had the second best record in the NL. If we go back last year, at one point, I want to say it was in May, the Padres had the best record in the sport. In May, they went 19-9, had a 679 winning percentage. That was their best month. The first 3 months of the season, April, they go 15-12. May, like I just said, 19-9. And then June, they also went 15-12. The rest of the season, the next 3 months, they had a losing record every single month. That first 3 months, they played, I think it is like 82 games, I want to say. I think it's 82. Maybe it's 84. I think if you cut the season in half, it gives the Padres the best chance. Now, I know that means that they would have fallen off in the playoffs. I think that's more of like, all right, you're getting into the dog days and guys are getting banged up. I also think that the Padres are going to be a little bit more healthy than they've been in the last few seasons. They've added a little bit of depth pitching-wise. They could add more, but they could also trade for more. So I'm looking at it. I think that if you cut the season in half, that'd probably be the best bet for this team. Now, some teams, I don't know. I feel like some teams, yeah, you go for 162, but it does feel like if you have aging pitchers or you have guys with some injury questions, that is not what you want. The marathon makes it a lot tougher, where the sprint aspect of it, you can be a lot better. You can get hot at the right time. So I do think it would benefit the Padres. Still, I'd rather there be the full season. I mean, you hear like the Dodgers, and I mean, in all of our lifetime, the Dodgers have won one time. It was a 60-game season. So of course, all of our friends, we live in Southern California. I mean, all of our friends are going to clown Dodger fans about it all the time. My roommate's a Dodgers fan. I mess with him every time we talk about baseball about it. So that is not what I would like to see. I don't want to see the Padres. It's like, oh yeah, the Padres have won a World Series. It's an 80-game season. I'd rather it be close to 162 as it can, but I do think the less games, the better for the Padres' actual chances. But anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, I got one more question. I think Isaac kind of already answered it, but realistically, what do you think the season should be? How many games should the season be? I mean, 162, it's too many games. Realistically speaking, it's too many games because then you still have to go through the entire postseason and you're playing close to 180 games. That is crazy for any sport. Even basketball only plays, what is it, 82?
I would say 120.
So that's just crazy to me that you're trying to play 180 games if you play the most amount of games you possibly can in the MLB. Realistically, I think between 120 and 125 games, it should be the most amount of games you should play in a season. I don't think you can go above 130. I think you're just playing too much baseball at that point.
I like 120. I think 120 is perfect. I feel like your pitchers go through so much having to pitch. You have to go through the rotation so many times, and it's just way too much for, you're throwing like, at the beginning of the season, you're throwing like 80 to 90 pitches because you're trying to save the guy for the latter part of the season. And then you start ramping up, and then you start seeing guys throwing 115 plus. And they have to do that every fifth day. Oof. Yeah, there's that. I mean, that's not right. That sucks. I can't imagine having to do that. But I think 120 is perfect. I think it's good for all the players' health. I think it's still good for baseball. And like I said, there could be a way where, if you want to promote your sport, you got to be able to promote all of your players. Down in, where we lived, it was, you got to watch either the Dodgers on the Spectrum, if you had Spectrum, or the Padres on Fox Sports San Diego. That's only two teams that you're able to watch. And also, I mean, you can watch the Angels, but it was far more often for those two teams to be on the TV than the other one, or than the Angels. So you're not really marketing all of the other great players. I never got to see I rarely get to see Acuna. I rarely get to see Soto. Like, only time I get to see them is if they're playing the Padres. So, I think that'd be good for marketing as well. I think it's just benefits everybody.
We should go try to have this conversation with pitchers from the 1920s that are like, "Are you guys joking? We used to pitch 600 innings a year." Like, you guys are babies. But no, I think like 120 is pretty solid. I do think that, like I said, like, we like to watch it, but I think that you do see like the wear and tear on a lot of guys, and you see a lot of pitchers not able to pitch that deep in their career. Obviously, that's got a lot better now that you don't have like 3 pitchers on your team, and you just have like your same starter every day. That was insane that it used to be like that. But I don't know. I think 120 is probably a good bet. I think that would reduce a lot of injuries, and I think you could have the season in the same amount of time, but you kind of cut down. And we've talked about it before, actually. I remember during this, we were talking about, how would, if you did like a weekend baseball type thing work? Like, how could you change up the season? I think there's a lot of very interesting ways where, because I hear a lot of people talking about it that aren't baseball fans are like, look, here's a problem. If it's a weekend day and it's the summer, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go watch a game of baseball. Like, they're like, I'd never have thought that before. Like, I'm just not gonna go casually watch a random baseball game. People do that with basketball, and of course Sunday is like football's day. So I do think that, I don't know if it'll happen like soon, but I do kind of wonder if like over the next 20 years we see the game altered a lot to be like, oh, it's a weekend event, or it's this kind of event. And I think there's a good possibility that happens. I don't think the season length would change, like in terms of like how, like, what is it, April to October? Like, I don't think that would change, but I do think we could see some alterations to how the schedule works, and how like when specific games are played and what days they are. Because if you kind of did a little bit more like football, where you're like, oh, we have Thursday through Sunday. It's one series a week. It's a 4-game series every single week. I think that'd be very, very interesting. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. Anything else you guys want to add, though? All right, awesome. Well, we're going to be hopefully going live tomorrow. If we do, I'll post something beforehand so you guys all know that we're going to. Not 100% sure on that yet, but if we do, it will likely be 9 a.m. Pacific time, but I will post that before so you guys will know. Once again, thank you all for listening, and let us know how many games you think that the MLB should be playing.